So, yeah, what are we talking about today? The topic of today is going to be about why people don't get to where they want to be in life. Because that's a really major issue for a lot of people. They have a desire to be in a particular place. So I don't mean necessarily a physical place. I mean, have a certain lifestyle, achieve a particular goal, work a particular career, have a particular relationship, create a certain state of health that they prefer to be in, all of those kinds of things, right? Why is it that we don't get to be where we want to be in life a lot of the time? And of course, it's not all the time. There's many situations where you do get to create what you want in life, but it seems to come at either a very, very high price, or there's a big struggle, or so on and so forth. It takes years and years and years and what have you, right? So what I've been working on for some time are the shortcut methods to get you to where you want to be in life. And when I say a shortcut method, I'm not talking about something you don't have to put any effort into, that just kind of magically happens for you. Definitely not. It doesn't come without effort. But there's a difference between effort and struggle, right? Struggle is where you have a negative perspective on the effort you have to put in. It's like, why do I have to do this? I can't believe I'm in this situation, so on and so forth. Whereas effort can be fun, can be exciting, can be rewarding. Like, hard work is actually very, very rewarding if you have a positive attitude towards it, and you can see a reflection of the effort you put in, that you get stuff back for it. But struggle is where maybe you're not seeing what you're getting back. If you're expecting a particular thing and you're not getting that, and that creates a negative perspective where you go, oh, this is such a struggle. So it's all about the mental attitude, and that's primarily where I focus, is for you, giving you tools and tips and techniques to change your mental attitude so that it's more aligned with the way that you can create where you want to be in life. You're not fighting against yourself anymore. Because when you think about struggle, right, if it's a negative perspective that you've got, then that's all up here, right? And so you have to put in a lot of effort to overcome that negative perspective. It's not automatic that things flow easily in that situation. So you're fighting against yourself. So why do that, right? Go with the flow a little bit more. So that's what I can talk about, and what I'll probably talk about today is that particular flow. How to align with the flow of where you want to be rather than the flow of where you don't want to be in life. So, onto that. Most people, they have an idea of where they want to be in life, and it's not where they are today. So they want change. They want to be able to change stuff. And it's not always the most urgent thing in the world. Like, your life might be actually okay. You might be doing great, but you just want to be somewhere different, right? You want to maybe change direction in your career. Or your life might be really terrible. It might be crap, and you really want to make massive changes, but you don't see how. Maybe you're a working parent, and there's just no time in the day. By the time you've done everything that needs to be done, there's no time for you to work on the stuff that you want to do. You've got to go to work and earn money, and that's the last thing. That's the only thing you can focus on, is just getting enough money to get through life. But really, you might have this vision of yourself as a wealthy person and all this great stuff that you imagined years back that would happen to you, and none of it's happening. And you can't see a way out of it because you're stuck in the struggle, right? The struggle is all consuming. It's like, I've just got to get through the day. How in the hell am I going to get time for anything else? So that's the situation that we want to look at ways to get out of, right? Now, I don't know how many of you who've joined the call are in a situation like that. I mean, yell out if you are, if you've got a struggle situation on your hands. I can see lots of hearts coming up and stuff, so I assume that people are relating to that. So struggle, how do we get out of it? All right, well, let's think about it this way. In front of you, your entire life, your entire presence of life, your entire focus and perspective and everything about you is divided, let's say, into two different areas, right? The first is what's going on now, right? The first is, what are we doing now? How we get through the day, all the things that are happening to you now. How do I do this? I've got to pick up this, do that, do all the immediate, important aspects of where you are now. And the where you want to be percentage of life mentally is probably no more than about 1% of your entire effort of life, of living, goes into that 1% of where you want to be, right? Because you can't put any more than 1% on, because you don't physically take the time to do it, because other things are more important, right? And you might want a job where you get to play with all kinds of wonderful new toys, but you don't have that job today. You're working in a supermarket today, and so what are you going to do? How are you going to get out of that? Because you can't just walk out of one job and into the other, right? Or you can't just abandon the job that you've got and go looking for something else, and hope that it's going to get there for you. That's not going to work, because you're going to end up broke, right? Because you just, or it could be a relationship situation. Let's talk about relationships for a second. You might be in a situation where you've got this relationship at the moment and it's not serving you, and you are feeling bad every day in it, and it's not getting you where you want to be, but you don't want to break the relationship up, because that's awful and that is pain and suffering, and you don't want to go through that. So there are so many situations like this. So here's a technique that I often use with people, and it's a little bit kind of out there, but it does work. I don't know if those of you who have heard of the law of attraction before. It's related to that, but it's not that, right? The law of attraction gets a lot of exposure in the kind of new agey press and that kind of thing, and this magical way of just letting your thoughts create everything that happens to you. I've got to say that thinking about it that way is not going to get you there. Not that I don't agree with the concept of the law of attraction. I actually do, and I know that it works, but it doesn't work by just sitting there wishing things were different and thinking about stuff. You have to actually take action. And if you read or you listen to The Secret, I don't know how many of you have listened to or read or watched The Secret, which is all about the law of attraction. There's one huge piece missing from it, and that is taking action. It kind of implies that all you got to do is think about what you want and you'll get it, but it's not the case. Like the guy who kept thinking about $1 million check arriving in the mail, and one day it did. And yeah, that's the end of the story. But the fact is that in between him wanting it and it arriving, he did a shitload of work, right? He wrote a best-selling book. Okay, so he took action, right? So you have to consider action. It's very, very important. So I was thinking about this. 99% of your brain power, of your mental effort, of your energy, of your zest for life, everything is being expended on the 99% of life that's just getting you through, right? The stuff that you want to change. You're actually putting the effort into the stuff that you don't want to keep going, and you feel like you have to put effort into the job that you don't want, or you have to keep the relationship that doesn't serve you, or you have to exist in this poor state of health, or all these things. That's where you're focused on, right? And in life, absolutely, and this is kind of going back, relating a bit to the law of attraction, you get out what you put in, right? What comes back to you in life is all about what you put into life. And if you're putting 99% of your presence as a human being into the life that you don't prefer, what are you going to get back, right? More of the life that you don't prefer. That's how it works, right? If you're only putting 1% of your mental effort, your physical effort, your spiritual effort, everything about you is not focused on that 1%, then that 1% that you really, really desire in life is not going to come to you. Right. So what do? Well, it sounds obvious, right? You increase the 1% to a lot more, right? But how can you do that? Because that might involve, leaving this job that's taking all your time, or you might have obligations around family or kids or what have you. You can't just chuck all that in and go, no, I'm going to focus more on the 1%. I'm going to make my 1% 100%. That's not going to work either, right? You're going to go broke there. So how do you do it? All right. You do it slowly. You have to go through a process. Human beings we need to go through process. We don't magically jump from one state of affairs to another state of affairs. You got to make your 1%, 1.5%, and then 2%, and then 3%. Now, how do you do that? Like, okay, if you're already spending all of your time on the 99%, there's nothing left at the end of the day for that 1%, then here's a technique that will help you expand the 1% without taking a lot of time, all right? It's called the future self technique. What you do, you imagine the future version of yourself. You come up with this vision of yourself, of who you are going to be in that 1% of your life that you really, really want to achieve. You know, the person who is doing the job that you want, the person that has the lifestyle, the person that has the relationship that you have always wanted, the person that has the particular state of health that you have been trying to achieve for such a long time. You know, this works great with weight loss, by the way. So, you know, if you're not in the state of health, your body weight is not where you want it to be, then this is a great way to get yourself on the path to changing that. So what happens is you come up with that method, you come up with that vision of yourself in your imagination, right? And by the way, that is what your imagination is for. Your imagination is an amazing creative tool. It's like the most amazing thing that we have, and it's so underutilized, right? Come up with that version of yourself in your imagination. So, who are you going to be? What's your personality going to be like? What do you look like? How do you dress? Who are your friends? You know, what do you do on a daily basis? What do you do different to what you're doing now? You know, and connect with that state of being, like feel what it's like to be that person. I know that sounds really weird, but stay with me because this most definitely works. I've been coaching for the last 3.5 years around this topic, and I've never seen a situation where this hasn't worked. Bonjour, yes, hello, nice to see you. So, coming up with that vision of your future self, right? But the important thing is not thinking about, well, I've got a blue car and I've got a big house and I've got this and that and the other. Actually feel what it's like to be that person. Treat it as if this is a person that you are interacting with on a daily basis. The reason I say that is because you tend in life to adopt the traits of the, you know, like 5 closest people to you. So the people you hang out with the most, they're the people that you're most like on a physical level, on a mental level, on a spiritual level, right? You travel through life in clumps, and yeah, sometimes people drop off that 5 and a new person comes in, that kind of thing. But you're most influenced by those, you know, those 5 people, and they're most influenced by you as well. So if you make this imaginary future version of you, if you make it one of the 5 people you hang out with on a daily basis, you're going absolutely to start adopting the traits and the mannerisms and you're going to start thinking like that person thinks, and you're going to be gradually in very, very small increments, you're going to be more and more like that person. And of course, by the law of attraction, you attract what you are, right? So if you're more like your future self, you're going to attract the opportunities that, or actually, sorry, I should qualify that. You're not going to attract them. They'll already be there, right? You don't need to worry about attracting them. You're going to notice them where you might not have noticed them before. An opportunity is going to come up that's like, wow, this is really aligned with where I want to be. And you might not have even seen it before because you're in that mindset of struggle the whole time. So, coming up with that future version of yourself, it's really an amazing technique. And when you do it every day, when you spend 10 minutes every day, you know, whether you're on a bus or when you're driving to work like I am now, or whatever you're doing, right? If you spend that 10 minutes, you invest that 10 minutes in yourself, that is actually going to change your behaviors. And it's not going to magically fix all your problems, right? But it's going to bring stuff to a head. It's going to bring stuff to your attention that you could use to get to that place of where you want to be, right? And when situations come up that are frustrating, that belong to the 99% of life that you don't want anymore, you know, have a think about, well, how would my future self handle this? You know, what would I do? Because you're bound to be in a similar situation to what you were before, even when you're your future self, right? These things are bound to come up. How are you going to handle it as your future self? What are you going to do? What are you going to do differently to what you're doing now? Yeah. So that is a really massively important technique to get your head out of the struggle, get it out of the 99%, and it actually shows you a way forward. It shows you a path. It shows you a place to go. You know, it gives you a direction to head in. Whereas before, all you're doing is just floundering through life as best you can, solving as many problems as you can, trying to make little incremental steps in the direction of where you want to be, but nothing ever really working out, and your head gets then stuck in the negative struggle, right? So that is my little future self technique. And if, as I said, if you do that 10 minutes a day, right, it's like a meditation, but it's not really meditation, but it's a little bit like that. If you do that, you're bound to start moving in the direction of where you want to be, all right? It's not going to happen by magic. It's going to happen by your action, because your actions are driven by your belief systems and your emotions and your thought patterns and all those wonderful things. And they're driven that way. So when you make the inner adjustment to your inner world, in your thinking patterns, in your emotions and your beliefs, that's when your outward world begins to change. And that begins to change by your behaviors, your words. You know, if your future self is a future self that never says, "Oh, I don't know," if they're decisive and confident and assertive, then that's going to start coming out in your language. You're going to stop being indecisive, and you're going to start being more assertive, because that's who you're hanging out with. You're hanging out with an assertive guy, right? For 10 minutes every day. Of course, it's going to improve your mental state, right? So there we go. That is the little future self technique. I'm happy if you guys want to put up comments or questions or anything like that. I'm happy to